Later in this episode, we're actually going to go through our top 10 of this Marbula1 based on what's happened and what we think is going to happen in the future. Maybe some controversial takes in there.
For sure. I mean, we definitely received hate in the past for our old top 10.
Yeah.
We put our minds together like last one, and we're pretty excited to share it. And 2. And 1.
All right, everyone, rolling at you live. We're back. We've kind of been doing a little week on, week off absence thing here, but we're trying to maintain the consistency. The episodes will always be on Tuesdays, and we're going for week by week. We're going for that.
We're back. I mean, NFL episode was awesome. Great response from everyone.
Absolutely.
Marbula1, though. We're fired up. Missed a week. Obviously, we want to do a preview, but a lot of content to go over. Really, really pumped to get into this.
Same. So we've seen week 1 and week 2 just dropped this last weekend. So we're going to talk a little bit about both weeks. But I think we want to just talk about this event as a whole. I think we're both so fired up that the 32 teams are back.
Sure.
Because as much as we love Sand Rally, just having the O-Rangers, for me, I know I'm not wearing the shirt today. It's in the wash. And for you, the Limers and Team Plasma, it's really nice to have those teams back.
Absolutely. I think what I liked especially because, we said it before on the podcast, we're new Marble fans. I don't think we've been OGs, but at the same time, we've been following for a long time. It's cool to see like my team have 2 different racers.
Yes.
I see Slime Lime, I see, Clementon, Orangin. I see some different racers that we didn't see in the past, and see like kind of the assets of our team and who's struggling a little bit.
Absolutely, and who like I don't think either Marble wants to let the other one down and let the whole team down as a whole. And it's cool. We bought these posters at the start of this podcast, and on Shimmy's it has Firo and Ecto, who are the 2 members of Team Plasma that are racing, and on the O-Rangers one over here, which you can't see, we have Clementon and Origin. So it's cool watching this, seeing them race. It's an awesome event. Speaking of, is there anything you want to start with on just the event in general that you love or don't like? Either way.
No, I mean, honestly, like we're big track guys. I mean, if obviously if you listened to the podcast before, we love the track. I want to hear your thoughts about the track. I mean, there's 2 different tracks we got to go over, week 1 and week 2. This will kind of be a review of both of them a little bit. We'll try to hit everything on both weeks, but tell me about like what you liked from week 1. I know we both talked about that issue with the booster, which we'll go into, but like that's one note I had from week 1. That booster caused some position switching.
It did. Let's just jump into it. Let's jump into week 1. Absolutely. And there was really no good camera angle to catch that booster, like the start of the booster. And we saw some marbles actually kind of get anti-boosted. They got stuck up in that section. I think it was it Shock? There was one racer in race 1 that we didn't really get to see. Savage Speeders it was.
Correct.
They pretty much got taken out of that entire race because of a slip up on the booster. When everyone else is starting to go fast, if you're going slow, you're going to lose some serious time.
I believe it was on the last lap too.
Yeah, it was deep in the race for sure.
But we saw it at times too, and obviously you're an O-Rangers fan, so we saw the O-Rangers. Was it Origin? Was in the first? Yeah, Origin was in the first week.
I believe so.
He got caught up on that a couple times.
Yeah.
And I saw multiple racers. Mellow Yellow got caught up on that.
Yeah.
It was an interesting spot in the racetrack that brought some trouble for these racers.
It did. And I'm excited to get into it. So later in this episode, we're actually going to go through our top 10 of this Marbula1 based on what's happened and what we think is going to happen in the future. Maybe some controversial takes in there.
For sure. I mean, we definitely received hate in the past for our old top 10. We put our minds together like last one, and we're pretty excited to share it.
Yeah, really excited for that top 10. So definitely stay tuned for that to see who's number 1, who's number 10, who might have not made the list. Might be a couple shockers out there.
Absolutely.
But
not
back
shock,
to week 1.
Not shock.
One thing I just want to go kind of back to in general. I really love the logos. They're kind of like an inverted dark themed logo for each team. It's kind of sweet. Team Primaries is one that stands out to me. I'll put it on the YouTube if you're watching. O-Rangers, all of them really just look cool. They look like dark and futuristic.
100%. And going off that, I think we take for granted the effort that goes into this this production. If you're looking at the tracks, they're just so well made.
Yeah.
Between the fans, the announcing, the tracks. Even to the chance,
right?
When the snowballs are in first or Mellow Yellow's in first, on the qualifying races when they're racing around the track,
right?
For the qualifying lap, you hear that chant. Just the attention to detail is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how long it takes to kind of get that nitty gritty stuff done.
Hours and hours.
Yeah, and speaking of that pump up video that they released prior to Marbula1 and at the beginning of each race, honestly gets me fired up. Gave me chills the first time I heard it.
It's funny because we were indifferent about Marbula1. We didn't know what to expect,
right?
And that's not to say that we weren't excited for it, because we absolutely were,
right?
But that definitely did the trick. I don't know if it fired up anyone else out there, but we definitely got dialed into that. And then week 1 came, and we sure saw a lot of content that we love to see.
Absolutely. Let us know what you guys thought of that. It's super cool. The Yella and the team let me know who made that video, but I wish I'll put it in here somewhere if I get the name. But awesome pump up video. I love Greg's line in there. A momentary lapse can cause I can't even read my own handwriting. Momentary lapse can cause a huge swing in the race. Just like any little slip up you have in Marbula1 can cause you to really lose or win a race.
Well, I think the margins are so small.
Yeah.
I think it's a little different from past events, because maybe the obstacles are there to bail you out a little bit, or, luck is a bigger factor. And these races, I mean, it's one turn, it's one boost, it's one jump, it's small margins to get, a place ahead or a place back.
That's a really good point. And let's start talking about the tracks again with that in mind. Because I think you see a lot of marbles overtake others on straightaways or around turns when a marble simply just catches a turn half an inch shorter than they should have. We've seen it multiple times. I know in week 2 we saw it with the O'Rangers. They were making some great turns, but couldn't seem to get on that conveyor belt. They couldn't get on the escalator. They could not board it. It was a frustrating thing to watch as a fan. They ended up coming in third, but they could have gone first or second if they made that time back. It's kind of the what ifs.
For sure. And I think that was week 2 we saw that, and I know your frustration with that, and I think we'll definitely get there, because you were yelling when we were watching those races.
Yeah.
But to your point, we saw in week 1 that 7, 8, 9 sequence.
Yep.
And if you remember week 1 on the track, it's 3 quick turns right in a row. You don't know what angle you're going to catch the boards at, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
That's that half a second difference that causes you to qualify 10th or 5th. Causes you to finish wherever you finish.
And I think so we talked about just off air how important qualifiers were, because where you start in the poll is absolutely massive. I mean, in F1 and M1, really in any kind of race, where you start the race is a huge advantage. But as you continue to race on these tracks, there's 16 laps. You just said, like, you don't really know where to turn. Some racers are better at learning that track as they go on throughout the race. So we've seen some racers in the back half be able to gain ground by learning the course as they go and learning what turns are better than others.
For sure. And I think the one takeaway we both had after week 1, to your point, was how important the qualifying round is.
Yeah.
And I know that Yella puts it up after the qualifying, or after the race results, the change in position to where you qualified.
Yeah.
And it's not high.
Right.
I mean, if you're qualifying in 10th, you're probably coming in either 8th or 13th.
Yeah.
It's that range.
Right.
So it just shows you how important that qualifying round is. Just, for a couple examples, we're looking here. I mean, the snowballs, we'll go into them.
Yeah.
But, they're qualifying in the top 5. They finish in the top 5.
Yeah. As a tangent, snowballs looking really strong out of the gate here with a couple of high qualifying finishes and a couple of really high placements in race play.
They're looking scary.
Yeah.
And I think we'll go into it, or our top 10. Like they're scary.
Yeah.
Just even in the bottom too, some of those bottom racers, it's going to be hard if you qualify in 19, 20, 18, 17. You're going to struggle to get out of that
right. And we've seen like an absolute dynasty like Savage Speeders. We covered on the NFL episode how legendary they are in this event, and to see them come in last in qualifiers and then have a last place finish coupled with another bottom 10 finish in the second race it's shocking to see. And it's I think this year Marbula1 is really up for grabs. I don't think Snowballs was a team that anyone had their eyes on, but they're coming out hot. And I think it's with only 10 races to make your hay, you got to get out there early, and Snowballs is doing that.
Absolutely. And we see the point discrepancy. I mean, you can see it behind Russ here if it's still up. The last 5 racers, 0 points. If you come in that 15 to 20 range, it's 0.
Yeah.
If you win, I believe it's 26 points for the first place finisher. So it's similar to every other race that Yella, every other event Yella puts on.
Right.
It pays to be on the podium. It pays to get that gold, silver, or bronze, and we're seeing it on display here.
100%. Anything else from week 1? I did hear Greg mention fatigue. I think that could come into play a little bit, but not as much as it would in Marble Survival 100, because just that pole position. Like if you're in the higher pole position, you don't have to exert as much. You just have to exert a little more than the next guy.
I think that goes into it. I think racers are more willing to kind of sell out on the qualifying rounds because they can kind of take it easy per se on the first 5 to 6 laps.
And still,
if they can hold that first to fifth position going in the last 5 laps of the race, they're going to be fine.
Right.
And I think that all goes into the strategy of the racers. But it's going to be hard. If you're qualifying in the 10 to 15 range, it's going to be really tough to get on the podium.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about week 2 because that's fresh in our minds. We just watched that, so that's kind of what's with us. An electric race between Snowball and Red Eye, and even that. So that was kind of tier 1. The entire race was Snowballs, and Crazy Cat's Eyes were just 1 and 2 jockeying for position,
and everybody else basically.
And then everybody else, yeah. But tier 2 did have that. The Clementon, Cerulean from the Cobalts was in there. Green Ducks, Team Plasma. That was kind of tier 2. They were jockeying as well. But just going back and forth with that Red Eye and Snowy was a really fun thing to watch, and I think that's kind of encapsulates what Marbula1 is all about.
Absolutely, I think it was a 2-man race. It was two racers the whole way. We saw a lot of movement though from 3 to 8.
Yeah,
even my limers were in there, and then they obviously fell. We saw Clementon climb at the end, which you'll go into with that escalator that you were screaming about. Pretty good there, but it was all over the place. We saw the Green Ducks sneak in. But a lot of movement in week 2, probably more than we saw in week 1.
Agreed.
But at the end, it was really those 2 racers that kind of took the charge and had the lead.
Yeah, they separated themselves, and I think they're showing who the top favorites are in this competition right now. But to get into that, so do you have the qualifiers from week 2 on here?
I do.
So, and this is kind of interesting. I mean, I'm paying a lot of attention to the O-Rangers during this event and all events, but to see them start in the 8th pole position and come in 3rd, I was really proud of that. That was something good to see. And I think a factor that's in that is they had the fastest lap in this race. So we've seen that 2 times now. Team Momo, or no, they had it for a while in the first race, but someone else took it from them. The teams with the fastest lap often are in that top 5 consideration.
Absolutely. And we saw, as we rooted on O-Rangers, I was rooting for obviously Plasma and Limers. Clementon climbed late.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for his mishap on that certain obstacle that you'll go into, I think he could have honestly gotten gold or silver. Like he was racing really well, fastest lap. If it wasn't for a couple slip ups, I think it could have been a 3-man race at the lead there.
Yeah, I'll talk about it from a fan's perspective because it was super frustrating. I mean, he would gain ground, he would be in that 8th position, pole position, then would have an unbelievable lap, and just maybe he was going too fast. Maybe it was like he was trying to play catch up. And he would ram right into that escalator and just drop down 3-4 rungs behind the marble behind him. So he would lose some ground there. And I know he had the fastest lap, but again, I think maybe it was so fast that there was not a lot of grace or finesse going into that escalator.
Sure. I think I counted 4 times in a row,
At
4
least.
laps in a row where he had probably a 4 marble lead, length lead, and he just gave it up for that bounce down.
Yeah.
Frustrating, but at the same time, you have to be optimistic that he raced so well
from
where he qualified.
100%. I mean, that's my biggest takeaway. We don't need to make this No Rangers podcast, but to see him climb 5 spots from his pole position with all those issues on the escalator is huge. Hopefully, they can go back to the drawing board and draw up some ways for Clementon and Orange to fix that and really take this whole thing by storm.
Absolutely. I think
any other pole position drastic ones that we saw. Like where did Crazy Cat's Eyes start it from the pole? So 3 to 1 jump. Actually, Cobalts fell from 2 to 4. But again, we're seeing a lot of these teams just hang within 3-4 spots of their starting position. What about Resi? Show me them. Resi dropped 2. Ecto went up 1. So, I mean, really just
it's
pole
position.
Tight.
Pole
position is huge.
It's those qualifying rounds are proving to be very important.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny because we were watching the qualifying videos like, we could probably skip through this. But no, it really determines a lot.
Huge. Huge. And then honestly, a testament to the O-Rangers. Qualified 8th and went all the way up to 3rd.
Right.
So we're not really seeing that much. So
no.
Just kind of proves to you how well Clementon raced.
And that might be what a champion looks like coming out of. Well, that might be what a champion. That might be like what a champion needs.
You hope so.
Coming down the stretch is to really beat out their pole position.
100%.
Let's see what else I got on week 2 here. Yeah, Clementon cannot board the escalator. That was like my biggest note. Oh, I was a little frustrated. So Shock got caught up. I ended up with like a DNF, came in last place. They didn't show it. They didn't show that to us on the camera angle.
No, and honestly, as a I agree with you. It was frustrating. I didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah.
They said he
got caught up.
Yeah, he said he got caught up. I think he jumped. I thought he honestly jumped into the stands, which I'm worried about. We're worried about the other, fans in the crowd.
Got to be worried about the fans. Got to be worried about shock. And maybe it was such a gruesome thing they didn't want to show it to us.
100%. So maybe that's the case. But we both kind of voiced our frustration of what's happening here.
Yeah, absolutely. And shock was, a person that we had kind of high vibes with going into this tournament. I think we both thought Thunderbolts are a fast marble. They're coming off a pretty good finish in MS 100. Maybe they can make some noise here, but have been very, very disappointing. Let's see where they're at. They're 14th place, no points in week 2. So maybe they can climb out, maybe not. But we will see. Any other notes you had for week 2? Snowballs are looking great.
I don't think so. I know we had some notes on the Savage Speeders. Just looking at the list now, they were the top gaining in positions from qualifiers. So they did raise seven spots over the O-Rangers.
Wow.
From where they qualified.
Okay.
So a team that we both said in the beginning we're probably a little disappointed in through 2 weeks, but I would never count them out.
Definitely not.
They definitely scare me.
If they can qualify better, then definitely look out. I didn't realize that. Great note. +7 out of pole position. That's
a little scary.
That's very scary. That's a lot.
That'll keep me up.
That's a third of the racers.
I know. So
that's insane.
Yeah, the one outlier there. Everyone else
big
is pretty
time. And
tight.
who was the biggest dropper? -8 for the Midnight Wisps. Cannot do that. That's a recipe for disaster, and that's a team that I think both of us did not think was. We were actually. I personally didn't know if they deserved to be in this competition.
I think that's a whole nother argument. I mean, that could be a whole podcast in itself.
Yeah, well, let's just talk about it briefly before. So we're going to get into our rankings in a minute. But so what we understand is that these top 20 marbles are picked just kind of based on popularity, past results, and that's how you get into the Marbula1, which is cool. I like that. I like that criteria. But if you're looking at some of the marbles that missed, I know we thought of a couple. Rojo Rollers. That's like a big name that missed.
Indigo Stars.
Indigo Stars. Both had pretty good Marbula1s. Indigo Stars better than Rojo Rollers. And I think, and a Wolfpack, another team. I think, in Indigo Stars and Wolfpack's case, those are two teams it's tough because they're not big names yet, but being in an event like this would give them the opportunity to make a name for themselves.
100%. And, we've talked to a lot of you guys through comments, Reddit, YouTube, whatever. It seems like there's a lot of discussion over this. And I think the reason why I say it's a whole podcast in itself is it really is a discussion that people disagree with.
Yeah.
I mean, there needs to be maybe a qualifier to get into Marbula1. There needs to be a competition to get in here. But it does seem a little unfair to some of these other teams that deserve a shot to compete in Marbula1.
Absolutely. Do you want to get into rankings?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Little nervous not even nervous. Do you want to start from 10 and go to 1? I think we should start 1 and go to 10. Because I think more of our surprises are towards that bottom half of the top 10.
You start with...
I'll start it off. Number 1. Really came down to 2 teams here, like we just talked about for race 2. But I think Crazy Cat's Eyes. Can you actually just pull up the week 2 leaderboard and show the overall standings? You got that for us?
Should be coming up. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so Crazy Cat's Eyes, yes, they're in second place by 1 point. But I think when you look at the finishes, they do have that gold. It's important to know how to win in this. And a 14 point, what is that finish?
I believe 5th place.
Yeah, 5th place finish. So just 2 really good solid finishes from them. Were able to edge out the Snowballs in that last race, so I think that's why we gave them that 1 spot.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we both agreed on that. Number 2 is pretty obvious. The Snowballs, I think you can go back, 1 and 2, you can argue both of these.
Yeah.
For us, I think it's just that podium. Getting on a podium means something. It means something for confidence. It means something to the other racers.
Absolutely.
Seeing you on that podium. And that's why we valued Crazy Cat's Eyes over the Snowballs. If I'm a Snowballs fan, though, I'm very optimistic. I really think they're racing well. Both racers.
Absolutely.
Snowy's racing great. Is it Snowdrift?
I think so.
I could be wrong there.
No, I think you're right.
We do have I think we have over 40 marbles to try to remember.
Yeah.
So bear with
Cut
me.
us some slack.
I think they're both racing well, and I think the Snowballs are a team to be reckoned with. So that's number 2.
Absolutely. And just to talk about those two, when I was talking about the logos earlier, the Crazy Cat's Eyes and Snowballs, they managed to make their logos look sweet.
Awesome.
The Snowballs look cool. Crazy Cat's Eyes look fierce just with that eyeball on the graphic. Looks awesome. Going down to number 3, this is also a pretty obvious pick. It's kind of where It's a step down from the top two, but it's a step up in that second tier. It's the Raspberry Racers. They also have a gold, which is pretty insane. Kind of quiet. We didn't talk about them much this podcast, but they're a team that I definitely am on the lookout for to be well around and coming down to the late stages of this Marbula1.
Yeah, I mean, not much to say. I think they raced well. Interesting note, they did qualify a lot lower than they finished in week 1.
Yeah.
Which is pretty substantial.
So they qualified 9th there, you're telling me?
That's what it's saying. That's what
and they came in first. That's grit.
It is. And you know that we talked about it with who was it? The Savage Speeders?
Yeah. Coming up.
That's something that makes you nervous about.
Yeah.
If you're fans of another racer.
Having that kind of speed and ability and consistency. It's really consistency over 15 laps to go from that 9th pole position all the way to 1st. And you're not talking about going from what Savage Speeders did from 14th to 8th or whatever. You're talking about getting past the best.
Mm-hmm.
Getting past the snowballs, the crazy cat's eyes.
And then getting first.
Yeah, that's insane. Raspberry Racers, I might have to take back what I said. They might be right in that top tier with the other two.
It's scary. Going into number 4, we're going to have my Team Plasma. Now, I am a fan of many teams, but definitely one of my favorite teams. A little upset, if I'm being honest with you. I think 4 is a little high, but at the same time, I think it's right depending on who you talk to. The reason why I'm upset, though, is they've had potential to be so much better.
Yeah, I agree.
We've been watching the races. They're right, Ecto Firo was right in that top 3 for a lot of the race in week 1. Week 2 is the same, and then they just have a bad bounce and they fall.
Ecto was right there with it was between him and Origin with who really wanted to come out with that one, and he just kind of fell back and Origin went for it.
So at the same time, I'm optimistic that they're gonna be fine, but at the same time, 4 seems like we could be better.
It's you gotta admit it's a pretty significant drop off from 1, 2, and 3 down to where Team Plasma is and the rest of these teams on the list.
100%. 100%.
Next is my team, the O Rangers. We kind of debated whether they should be 4, 5, potentially even 3, but that would have been ridiculous. I think they're in a good spot here at 5. They have that bronze medal, which is definitely something to hang their hat on. I think what they don't have that Plasma had was back-to-back consistent finishes. It was something like 7th and 8th around that area. So to just have that consistency was nice. But to see the O Rangers go something like 11th place and then hop up to 3rd, just a little bit worrisome. So yeah, that's what we got for the Rangers.
Yeah, and honestly, a note on the O Rangers, I think they could have been higher.
Yeah, agreed with that conveyor belt.
And just being the most non-biased O Rangers person, I don't trust them.
Yeah,
and I think all O Rangers fans out there can agree. Just make me nervous, man. Yeah. They make me nervous.
Me too. I will say I'm cautiously optimistic about this team.
I think that's accurate. Yeah. Very accurate. Number 6, we have Momo.
Might ruffle some feathers too. This whole thing might ruffle some feathers.
100%. But we're not just going off the leaderboard and we're picking 1 through 10.
No. It's what we see.
It's what we see. What we see for the future and the past. Momo is an interesting racer here because he did qualify later, out of the top 10, and then all of a sudden he came up with, what was it? A 2nd, 3rd place finish is probably above me.
No, I think it's
20 points. So that's about 3rd place, 4th place finish.
That's 2nd place
in week 4. Yeah, week 1, 2nd place.
Yeah, that's 2nd place.
So pretty impressive there. Came back in week 2 with quite a disappointing effort.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
putting up that 2nd place finish.
I know Momo, and I saw him with the fastest lap at one point, and I definitely wrote that down. So I'm not counting Momo out. No. I think he deserves to be in the top 10.
I agree. I very much agree.
But again, week 2 does concern me.
Yes.
So it's cautiously. We're going to watch week 3 with open eyes on Momo.
Absolutely. Right next, we're going to go to Green Ducks. This might ruffle some feathers too because we're skipping over Mellow Yellow and Cobalt in the standings. But I think it's what we've seen out of Green Ducks. I feel like every time I'm looking up at that leaderboard, I'm seeing them flip-flop, and then just kind of go up and down. I think they've had a couple bad breaks thus far, but I think they're starting to turn around. In the first race, they came in something like 13th. This last race, they were something like 10th. So they're building. Oh no, they had 12 points in that last race. They're
so probably top 10.
Yeah, they were top 10. So I think look out for them. That's my sleeper team to make a run at this event. Sure. We'll see if they can keep it going.
And we both kind of agreed. And obviously, Mellow Yellow is number 7 or number 8. I'm sorry, but I'm sure people are going to be upset. They want to flip flop those. But hear us out here. Mellow Yellow did not show well in week 2.
No.
Like Momo. He didn't show well in week 2. I just didn't see him race well in that week 2.
Yeah.
And we just had a little bit more concern for that
recency
squad.
bias, probably.
100%. So that's why we thought Green Ducks. I think if we're predicting the future, I think Green Ducks finish above Mellow Yellow in week 3.
I would agree, and I don't think it's close. I think Mellow Yellow sinks like a rock.
Yeah.
I don't like them going forward in this event.
I mean, we're gonna receive some hate for that, but I agree.
That's fine.
I agree.
We're here to ruffle some feathers.
Number 9,
Hazers, currently in the 10th pole position, but 5 points and 7 points, showing a little consistency and improvement. 5, not amazing, but it's somewhere around that 11, 12 spot, and then up to 7, which is like 1 spot ahead. So they're gaining a little bit of ground. To see them at least get points in both events, there's no drastic outlier to look at with them. I think just that consistency is what kept them above the Cobalts for us. That was the only team ahead of them in the standings that we don't have listed here. So
sure, and our 10th team is definitely not the Cobalts.
No,
it's these guys right here.
Go Limers.
It's these guys. Call me biased all you want.
I agree.
We were succeeding. We were excelling in many different facets of the race. If you watch the race and you're being honest with yourself, I think we were in the top 10 for a lot of the races, both
both
weeks.
Definitely.
Struggled at the end. Tough breaks.
And it's just when you look at the teams above them, there's the Oceanics who went 9 points and then 0, and the Bumblebees who went 0 and then 9. I'd rather see a 4 and a 4 than a 0 and a bigger number.
100%. And I'm confident, like you said, with Mellow Yellow sinking like a rock. I really think the Limers are going to finish above those 2 teams and get in the top 10.
And yeah, we'll give an explanation right now for why the Cobalts are not in our top 10. We just talked about it. So the Limers have 4-4. When we would take that over a 9-0 or 0 and a 9 in back-to-back weeks, the Cobalts went 0 week 1 and then 17 in week 2. 17, you're saying, well, that's pretty dang good. And they're sitting right here at 8th place in the overall standings. But that was at their home track. The Electron Raceway, they race it every day. That's where they practice. They know that track like the back of their marbles.
Absolutely.
So I think that's why we're very worried about the Cobalts. I mean, we'd probably have them at 11, but we're not in our top 10.
Absolutely. I think it's kind of a prove-it type of week going into week 3.
Absolutely.
To Russ's point, they know the track.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm impressed, but I'm not that impressed.
Right.
Go prove it in week 3.
Absolutely.
Go show us why we're wrong. Show us in week 3 that you could play on the road, that you can race on a different racetrack.
100%. Do that, and I might be bought back in, and you will be slotted in the top 10.
Absolutely.
We should do this every week, just a current top 10, maybe a top 5.
I love it, and I want to hear their comments too, because we definitely could be way off, but at the same time, I'm going to stick to my guts. I'm going to stick to what we feel, and that's our top 10. One other note I wanted to make, because we are, if you forget, we are a Team Primary podcast.
We are.
For all you Team Primary fans out there, what is going on with your camp? I mean, what's happening? I don't even want to look at the scoreboard because I know where you guys are at. But it's gut check time. It's look in the mirror time for the Team Primary squad. I don't know how much to say. I don't want to fire them up because I did that with the Oceanics.
Yeah, but you don't hate the Oceanics. We do want to fire them up, and maybe something needs to be. Their cage needs to be rattled. Team Primary is better than this. We saw an MS 100. They're a fast marble. We know they're a fast marble. They have speed. They have a cool design. They have what it takes to do well in this event. Let's see it.
Let's see it. It's honestly concerning. I think if it goes on for a couple more weeks, maybe we're talking about a coaching change.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't want to jump to that conclusion after 2 weeks.
I don't disagree, though. Maybe a coaching change. Maybe these racers got to look in the mirror. I'm not sure who's racing for them. Is it Arup or whoever? But
it was Arup in week 1. I know that.
Arup might be tired from MS 100, so maybe that coach does need to be fired. He needs to understand that there needs to be a change of personnel.
We got Arup and
Rima.
Yeah, jeez.
Jeez. I mean, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, we're in for Team Primary, but something's got to change. So
we are.
Look forward to that in week 3.
Yeah.
Any other notes you can think of?
No, I don't think so. I'm getting really more excited about this event as things go on. I think it's going to be. I'm hoping it's an electric finish. I'm hoping there's a little bit of a pack created at the top between Snowballs, Crazy Cat's Eyes. Rangers are right in there. I mean, just hang around. I'm just gonna hang around. Just gotta hang around. Just be there for the last race.
Don't forget about Slamline.
You can't forget about Slamline. You can't. That's top 10 marble right there.
I know.
All right, guys. We also just did want to thank you for the love on the NFL video. The comments were hilarious. We love going back and forth with you guys on that.
100%. As we always say, I mean, we love you guys. The comments have been awesome.
Yeah.
The likes, everything. This is fun for us, and it just keeps on growing. So we're happy to keep growing it and keep making these podcasts.
It's a blast. We'll drop some of those comments in here. I'll drop them a little earlier when we were just talking about it. But you good?
I'm good, man.
All right, guys, we're rolling out. We'll see you next week for the Week 3 review and a Week 4 preview and a fresh new top 10 or top 5.
Let's do it.
All right, guys. Peace.
Peace. Get us on board.